So finally, we are going to be sitting down with Jami Lewchik, who is the Senior Brand Manager of Tazo Tea, and Diandra Marizet and Sabs Katz, who are co-founders of Intersectional Environmentalist, and we'll be talking all about climate justice. So thank you, ladies, so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really excited to get things going. So first, Diandra, I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about who Intersectional Environmentalist is and some of the work that you do.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and share a little bit more about what we do and some of the cool stuff that we've been able to do with the Tazo team. So Intersectional Environmentalist, or IE for short, is a community and resource hub that is here to help build the next generation of intersectional environmentalists. And we do that through educational resources and events that really seek to amplify and center intersectional perspectives in the environmental movement. And we do this by bringing a significance of identity and culture within our environmental stewardship to the forefront of these conversations. And we've been able to help a lot of our community find joy in reclaiming their heritage and their backgrounds in these environmental conversations. And we also curate and provide free, accessible resources. We develop this educational programming, and again, we host these events to ultimately empower our community with the tools that they need to take action in their own ways, whether that be through the lens of their fields of study, their career paths, their personal hobbies and passions, and ultimately through local advocacy.
Thank you so much for that intro. And we know we've referred to this a little bit, I think, earlier in the program, but that climate change and the climate crisis are not felt by everyone equally. And Sabs, I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about some of the reasons why communities of color in particular tend to be disproportionately impacted by the effects of climate change.
Yeah, so when we look at the climate crisis and who it's most impacting, we're seeing there's a large correlation between harmful social constructs like sexism and racism, which disproportionately target certain communities, whether that's through the increase in rates of asthma in Black and Brown communities, or the increase in climate refugees, or the development of pipelines such as Line 3, which puts Indigenous communities at risk. And as an organization, we at IE are working to bring a lot of these issues and conversations to the forefront of environmentalism. Just one example of a statistic pulled from, to kind of confirm a lot of these issues is from 2019, which found that white Americans experienced around 17% less air pollution exposure than they caused. Meanwhile, Black and Latinx communities average a quote unquote pollution burden of around 60% excess exposure. And that just means 60% more pollution than their communities even caused. So these are just a few reasons why it's so important for us to address and listen to and center the voices from these frontline communities in order for us to really understand why these harmful social constructs and systems would target them so unjustly.
I think that's such an important point to make, right? Yes, absolutely. And like such an important point to make about who is causing the significance, like the most impacts, and who is bearing the brunt of these, right? Whether you're talking about developed markets like the US or globally, we really see that the populations that are causing the greatest impacts are not those that are bearing the most significant brunt of those impacts, right? And Jami, Tazo Tea came out with a really bold statement around this last year saying, we are taking a stand for climate justice. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and what it means for you.
Sure. Thank you so much. We understand that the climate crisis isn't a threat, something that's coming in the future. Not only is it here now, it has been impacting communities for decades. And as Sabs just said, it's disproportionately impacting communities of color, lower income communities. And I think we saw that so tragically right now with Hurricane Ida. I mean, you ask, why can't somebody evacuate? Potentially they don't have the means. How is a hurricane traveling all the way from the Gulf Coast through inland, up through New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and still dumping record rainfalls and causing dozens of lives to be lost? We realized that the sense of urgency was dire, and the justice piece of climate work was so critical.
Absolutely. And you're working with groups like Intersectional Environmentalist around this issue. Can you tell us a bit more about that work?
Certainly. So we're experts at Tazo in making tea. We are not experts in climate change, social justice. So we sought out the people that were, and we were so fortunate to be able to partner with groups like American Forests, We Act for Environmental Justice, and of course, Intersectional Environmentalist. And in fact, we were able to participate in their first ever brand accountability program. And this was a training course, essentially a training course where we were able to really sit and turn that lens internally and to understand how in our conversations at work are we missing the opportunity to center the marginalized communities that have been bearing the burden of business as usual for so long. And then perhaps most rewardingly, we were able to fund in a paid internship program where they were able to offer their interns a living wage.
That's so fantastic, and really excited to dive into that a little bit more here. But some people might hear something where it's like, okay, internships, climate justice, how are these two things connected, right? And Sabs, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but can you tell us a bit more about why it's so important for people from the communities that are most impacted by climate change to really have their voices heard in these conversations?
Absolutely. So, intersectional environmentalism quite literally advocates for the protection of people and the planet, and that includes the well being of humans in the professional sector as well. So, offering things like paid internships, in doing so, we can really influence other industries to prioritize these diverse voices that are so needed for an equitable future. Um, as many of us know, the climate crisis is the largest issue that younger generations are facing. So providing jobs that advocate for intersectional environmentalism and climate justice allows these young professionals to really combine their passion with their professional skills. And, you know, we're here to help them grow, whether that's opportunities for mentorship, training, networking, and learning. And I think overall, we just hope IE can serve as a model for transparency, for equality, and for care for our team.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. And the first cohort of these interns has actually gone through the program. Is that correct? And Diandra, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how that went.
Yeah, absolutely. The internship program was incredible. It really was an opportunity that changed the course of IE's future, not only for just us as an organization, but for all of our interns as well. As a small grassroots effort that was just getting started a little over a year and a half ago, we knew that funding was going to be a challenge, but the Tazo team came to us and asked us what we needed to create the educational resources, the access, and the impact that we knew we could have. And with an understanding that environmental justice work is so often underpaid or not paid at all, we wanted to be able to fund an internship program that would create space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and particularly youth, to flex their skills in this work with us while being paid. So we had interns ranging from communications to design to animation, operations, research, finance, so really spanning the business sector. And one of the most impactful things that came out of the internship program was the creation of an intersectional history on environmentalism video. And it tied in the expertise of all of our interns, and they created this incredible piece of media that universities and organizations and even Kerry Washington has shared at this point. That was kind of exciting. And it was so beautiful to see how they all contributed their skills across everything that I just listed. And now some of our interns have gone off to do incredible things like work for Netflix, Global Health Corps, and more. And we're excited to continue working with them.
That is so fabulous. Love the dog cameo as well. But no, I'm such a huge Kerry Washington fan, so I would have been so excited about that also. But I'm wondering, Jami, if you could tell us a little bit about how it was like for Tazo in terms of dealing with and working with these young leaders and future leaders of the climate movement.
It was just really inspiring to see the work that they were able to put together, and to know that we had a small piece in, fostering that was very rewarding. As both Sabs and Diandra mentioned, these are young professionals just starting on their journey in environmentalism, and their take on things is so critical, and to have that opportunity uh, was key. So we are really privileged to have been able to offer that paid internship. And we also learned that it's important as a business when working with our grassroots nonprofits to say, what is it that you do need, not to make assumptions and not to come with our own mission, but instead to help foster theirs.
Absolutely. Yes. I hope all of the brand leaders out there are listening right now. Is it really, when it comes to, we hear this so many times when we're doing our reporting, is that when you're working with grassroots groups, community groups, they know their communities so well. They will know what's best about what they really need and how they're going to be able to make that impact that they really want to have. So, love that you mentioned that. And as we're wrapping up our conversation here, I'd love to hear from all of you if you kind of an action item or two for the broader business community about pushing climate justice forward. How can we go about doing this? And Diandra, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, we'll see if we get another cameo from my dog here. But I think that right now we do have a really urgent shift that needs to happen, both within the narrative of the environmental movement, but also a shift in how we fund it. So I alluded to this earlier, but not only can businesses really provide teams with the face time and the tools and the resources that we need to better understand why intersectionality is an important lens for environmental justice, but there's also a huge opportunity to address the large disparity between the funding that general environmental efforts receive versus more targeted environmental justice efforts that will ultimately empower us all to fight the climate crisis together.
Absolutely. And Sab, same question.
Yeah, so kind of, just reiterating everything Diandra said, I think committing to wealth distribution is especially important for grassroots environmental justice organizations. Unfortunately, not everyone can be an expert in climate justice, but everyone can be a part of the solution. And, we all have a role to play in this movement. So, we want to encourage businesses to go beyond just the bare minimum of wealth distribution. In just over a year at IE, we have been able to distribute over 10% of all of our funding to, various environmental justice initiatives. So we really want to encourage other large organizations to continue funding and distributing wealth in this way.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying about how we can't all be experts, but we can all do something. Every single one of us can do something about this, right? I hope everyone's hearing that. But Jami, what are your thoughts on those big action items out there for the business world?
Yeah, so we heard the president say just yesterday that this is code red for the environment. So my first piece of advice to my fellow business leaders is to take action immediately. If you're thinking that this is something that you can workshop or put off, I would encourage you instead to just start today by saying who's already out there working on something. As we did, we found a wonderful partner with Intersectional Environmentalists, and we were able to help unlock further growth for them. And that would be my ambition for each of you listening today, is to find those partners and help help fund those missions to bring more good in the world.
And get started now. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for being with us. This was so great, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.